Hey, it's 4.3, Step 2. Remember. This is Christina Rossetti's poem that I introduced in 4.3, Step 2. But in this video, let's take a closer look at the poem. We're going to look at some definitions. We're going to do SCASI and get you ready to answer your style questions on your own. So here's the poem. In the last video, we talked about how it's an Italian sonnet, and we know that because it's got 14 lines of iambic pentameter with a specific rhyme scheme. And that's what we need to know about form when it comes to this poem. We can also, maybe the last one, that sort of form and structure, is when we're looking at the octave and sestet. So the first 8 lines are the octave, right? And so it's lines 1 through 8. And so the octave is usually setting up a scenario, a situation. And then the last 6 lines are the comment about the situation. And in this case, that's the sestet. Or it's always the sestet, I should say. That's just means 6 lines. Okay. So, but in this case, the situation is painting a hypothetical scenario of when the speaker is no longer alive, when they have gone away into the silent land, and then listing all of the things that will be gone, will no longer happen, like you can no more hold me by the hand. You aren't going to see me half turn, but then come back and stay. You're not going to be able to tell me our future that you planned. It'll be too late to give advice or to pray because I'll be gone. Then in the sestet, we have a change, and you can see that with the transition word yet. And here the speaker offers kind of a suggestion, like, here's what you should do. Okay, you can no longer do those other things I listed, but here's what you can do. If you forget me for a while and remember, don't be sad, don't grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, so if the darkness of forgetfulness and the corruption of memory leave a little trace of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile than that you should remember and be sad. So if I'm gone because you can't do these things with me anymore, and then you remember me, don't feel bad about it. Don't feel sad. Smile at the memory of me. Or rather, don't remember me at all and just be sad. Just be happy. I mean, it's been a long day, y'all. Okay, so that is how it's a form. That's the form, right? That's how it's a sonnet. But let's move into structure, because this is really where we get to the analysis part. And let's take a quick look at SCASI to help us start analyzing. The first thing that I want to mention, I can't enlarge my frame apparently, are some definitions. Counsel is just give advice to. Vestige is a trace of something that's disappearing, the smallest amount. And then we've got the setting, character, and action that we want to start with to make sure that we have a literal understanding of the poem before we get into looking at how style affects our thoughts and ideas and what ideas it creates. That is the evaluation and the interpretation part. Okay, so setting and situation. There's no clear setting in this poem, and this will be the case in a lot of poems that you read. There's some things that are kind of inferred, and like silent land, but that's very figurative. She's talking about in the land of death, she's talking about being dead. So it's less specific in setting, so that's when we have to go with this situation part of SCASI. So in this case, the situation is it's a hypothetical scenario of when the speaker has gone away into the silent land. And that's why we have the verbs the way that they are. She starts with remember me, which is a directive, a command. But then later it's when you can no more. It's all these negative verbs, these negations, because these things can't be done anymore. It's what had been happening between the two characters in the poem, but will no longer happen because she's gone. So it's a hypothetical scenario, and we have these kind of conditional verbs. That is the key, I think, of this situation of this poem. And then she offers a suggestion in the last 6 lines about the best way to deal with these memories that the you may have for the speaker. So the characters, we've got the I and the you. The I is the speaker, and the speaker is speaking directly to a you. And it's when you're looking at the speaker, it is important to look at who is the audience in the situation of the poem. So, of course, we as readers are audience members, but in the situation of the poem, there's usually a speaker, and the speaker speaking to someone or something, sometimes specifically named, as in this poem where we have the you that's named, not by a proper noun, but by that pronoun you. Someone who has held her by the hand, planned a future for them, and who would be sad when she is gone. So, maybe a romantic partner, if you want to take the traditional reading, maybe we have a wife and husband. But of course, we can read it in any way we like. At least we know that these are someone who have planned a future. It's a couple who has planned a future together. Okay. The next letter is A for action. What is the action? Well, the main action in the poem is actually the speaker mentioning hypothetical scenarios, things that won't be possible anymore in the first 8 lines, and then in the last 6 of what the you should do in the future. Some of these things that are listed that can no longer be done are like holding hands, turning but then staying, talking about the future, counseling and praying. And then the future scenario that the speaker sets up where she says, this is what you should do. You should smile if it means that you're going to forget me. You should forget me if it means you can smile, maybe is the way to say it. You shouldn't grieve if that brings happiness. Okay, so that is the literal understanding of the poem. And you have to get there first before you can really dig deep into the authorial choices and how they create meaning. But that is the next step. And with this lesson, I'm just asking for you guys to look at structure. So you don't have to look at diction, imagery, tone, or any of the other myriad of authorial choices that exist in poetry analysis. Just look at structure. So in this poem, you might see that there are a couple of caesuras. There is some enjambment. There is rhyme and meter that is quite regular. So those are all some different things that you could write about for questions 1 through 3. I think for question 1, I think for when you're looking at, how well does the poem follow the sonnet form, it follows it very well, right? It's perfect. It has that rhyme scheme that is needed, and it has the iambic pentameter. So you don't have to worry about looking for that anymore. Instead, look for some of these other things that I mentioned, right? Caesura in line 7 and in line 10. You're also going to find, oh, and by the way, these terms that I'm using, go back to the Understanding Poetry document in Schoology if you want to know more about what they are, or the videos in lesson 1. We have enjambment at the in between lines 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, and 13 and 14. Yeah, I think that takes care of it. See if you can use those to make some sense about how Rossetti uses the sonnet form and how she uses structure in general to make a point about emotion and memory. See if you can draw a connection. All right, good luck. Enjoy.